Okay, so if you've been a fan of my channel since the very beginning, you know that I love the character of Red Hood. Ever since I've become a comic book nerd, he has been a beacon of what I love to see in comic book storylines. I love his arcs, his personality, and the emotions that he shows. And in my opinion, he's the best out of Batman's 4 main children. However, some people think the exact opposite of that, because Red Hood is often overshadowed by Nightwing. Now, keep in mind, I don't hate Nightwing. I actually really like his character. I like his arcs, his storylines. But in my opinion, Red Hood is just as good, if not an even better character than Nightwing. Especially more recently in comics, where Red Hood has started to turn more to hope rather than fear. But you might be asking why. Why do I think Red Hood is such a good character as I say he is? Well, that's what we're gonna go over today. Because in today's video, I'm going to explain why I think Red Hood is the best Robin. By the way, we're talking about Robins after they were Robin. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about is combat. And this is probably the most brought up thing when it comes to Red Hood versus Nightwing. With Red Hood on one side being extremely brutal, but Nightwing being extremely agile and quick. And usually people say that Nightwing wins, but the thing they never talk about is how much extra training Red Hood actually has. You see, when Jason came back to life, he went to the League of Assassins. And after being healed by the Lazarus Pit, he was being trained by Ra's al Ghul's daughter, Talia al Ghul. And Batman himself in the Batman Incorporated storyline has admitted that Talia is basically on the same level as him when it comes to combat. The only reason why he wins is because of blunt strength. And in the storyline, Batman Return of Bruce Wayne, Batman benches around the low 900s. Then if we look at this Red Hood bicep analysis, yes, people actually make this stuff. And people believe, judging on size and durability, that Red Hood benches at least in the high 1800s. So if we're judging by that, Red Hood's strength might not be equal to Batman's, but it's very, very similar. And not only that, but Red Hood has also been trained by hundreds, if not thousands, of different mercenaries. And they, along with the League of Assassins, have taught Jason many different lethal techniques. Which brings us to Jason's fighting style compared to the other Robins. Now, like I said before, Red Hood's fighting style is very lethal, which leads to much more powerful blows in much more vital areas. But the Bat family, much like any other martial art, are trained to protect those areas at almost all costs. So if this makes sense, his fighting style is kind of a high risk, high reward. However, if the high reward doesn't come, he has... Now, Red Hood now doesn't really use his guns that much unless if he absolutely has to. And he almost always uses them as a last resort. But let's say he's fighting Nightwing. I would use Tim Drake more, but Jason's always beat him in the comics. Now, I will admit, Nightwing is definitely faster than Jason. But that doesn't mean Red Hood has no chance of winning. Whether that was in a fight, a common question, or even genuine physical studies. So if Red Hood's able to land a good shot on Nightwing, he could be able to take him out within minutes. Am I saying Red Hood would win every time? No. But am I saying Nightwing would win every time? No. It's just the fact of performance. And oftentimes, people just go off statistics. But almost always, in every comic book fight, the winner almost always wins if he's performing better. So basically, what I'm saying is, Red Hood isn't the best fighter in all of DC, no way. But he's able to go toe-to-toe, if not beat, almost every Bat family character. And that's with or without his guns. But now that we've talked about combat, it's time to talk about one of the Bat family's best traits. Now, for years upon years, the mental state of the Bat family has always been extremely good. Because Batman, his sons, and other members of the Bat family are extremely durable. They can take extremely hard hits, extremely bad injuries, and still get up to keep fighting. And that's not just Red Hood, that's like almost every Robin. But in my opinion, Red Hood might have one of the strongest mindsets in the Bat family. And most people think that he's just filled with rage and mindlessly fights when he needs to. But believe me, that is not true at all. Because after all that Red Hood's been through, the trauma doesn't get to him. He keeps standing up to fight and he thinks about how he fights. And the trauma he's experienced is just what fills his strength. Red Hood has literally said that he forgives Batman, and he was able to overcome the peak of his origin, the fact that he had to forgive Batman. And that is one of the reasons why I love Red Hood. Despite all the trauma and all the pain that he's faced, he was able to overcome that. And that proves to me, and hopefully proves to you, why he is extremely strong, especially mentally. But anyways, I keep saying that I love Red Hood's character. So let's talk about him. Let's talk about Red Hood's character. Now, let me start this off by saying Red Hood has been through a lot, and that's just not in the main storylines. He's been bounced back from writer to writer, artist to artist, but almost always the writers focus on this main characteristic. And that characteristic is the fact that Red Hood isn't a perfect character. He's not perfect. You see, back when Jason was Robin, there was this one storyline that I absolutely love called The Diplomat's Son. And in this storyline, he figures out that a man named, I'm sorry if I pronounce this wrong, Philippe Garzones, doing some absolutely horrible things. And I won't say it on my channel, but just know that it was absolutely disgusting. And Jason is able to beat him with 1 or 2 punches, but when he rescues the victim and takes her to GCPD, he realizes that the man that did those horrible things was let off loose. And that's when he starts to feel the anger inside him. Jason can't believe that he was let off the leash after the horrible things he did. And Jason is disgusted. But eventually one day, Jason comes to check in on the victim. She did something to herself that was irreversible. And she did it because she thought it was the only way that she could escape him. And Jason is furious. So then he begins to swing and leap through rooftops like he never has before, until he finds Philippe on a balcony. Batman then arrives just in time, but Philippe begins to fall off the edge. And as Philippe hits the ground, Batman comes next to Jason and asks him this: "Jason, did you push him?" And Jason replies with, "I must have spooked him. He slipped off the ledge," as Jason swings away for Batman to be left alone on the balcony. Now, I get this shows that Jason was very angry as a kid, but this shows and helps to prove that he isn't a perfect character. Batman's #1 rule, which was to not kill, he broke, and that shows that he fell short. And eventually, Jason feels horrible about it. He comes to Bruce with his feelings, and he apologizes. But then flash forward years later, Jason is still doing the same thing. In a new series called Batman and Red Hood Cheer, Red Hood finds this kid named Tyler. And when he sees Tyler's mom on a bed, he sees that she's injured. And knowing that the father most likely did this, Red Hood goes searching for the father. And he brings Tyler along with him. Now, eventually the case leads to an abandoned warehouse. And Jason begins to see himself in Tyler. A kid that simply just wants to be loved. A kid that wants somebody to understand him. And out of protection for Tyler, he gives him his mask. Tyler asks Red Hood his name. "It's Red Hood, kid." Tyler says that he'll be the Blue Hood, because he likes the color blue. He enters the warehouse and begins to take down all the criminals, including Tyler's dad. As Tyler's dad is on the ground, he begins to say that he's glad that his wife is injured. He's glad that his son is alone because he never really cared about them. And Red Hood, absolutely furious, mag dumps, only after realizing that he just killed Tyler's dad. Jason realizes what he's done. Eventually though, Batman shows up and begins to fight Jason over the fact that he just killed another person. However, Tyler steps in to stop Batman from fighting Jason, and Batman gives him a lollipop. Batman tells Jason that what he just did was wrong, and Red Hood agrees. Then he looks at Tyler, realizing that the more he kills, the more evil there will be in the world. So Jason decides to give Batman his guns. And he tells Bruce that he finally gets it. He finally understands why he shouldn't kill. Because kids like Tyler don't need a dark and brooding soldier. They need a hero that can show them hope, that can show them what it's like to be a hero, and why they should be a hero too. And as Batman and Jason part their separate ways, with Jason giving Tyler his own blue hood, Jason tells Bruce that he'll see him again, and that the next time they see each other, it will be for the right reason. And boom! To sum up this video, everybody, I don't love Red Hood because of the strength, the brute force, or even just how cool his suit is. It's because I love his character, and he's an imperfect one at that. Jason falls short of not only Batman, but the whole Bat family's expectations all of the time. He fails to keep his promises, he fails to keep his oaths. But the fact that he continues to get up and keep fighting to get those right, that is what makes him a good character. And the truth is, that's human. And I know this sounds like the Superman speech, but it's true. In my opinion, Red Hood is one of the most relatable characters in the Bat family. Not because of his backstory, but because of what he tries to do. Us as humans mess up all the time, but it's the fact that we keep getting up that makes us strong. And that is why I love Red Hood as a character. Not because he's perfect, but because he's human. And that is why I think Red Hood is the best Robin.